How is everybody? I'm just going to check on my phone to see if I'm live. I'm going to be live now. Somebody pop a comment in if you can see me live. I haven't done a live in the group for some time. I may reuse this on my other socials. So if you want to know where I am doing this live, I'm doing it in my Finding Your Power group, which is facebook.com/groups/Finding Your Power. So you may or may not be aware, but this week is National Stress Awareness Week. And I just wanted to I wanted to explain really about stress, because stress is actually a really good thing. Positive stress, so whether that's stressing our bodies in the gym or whether that's learning something new, is really important. It's really good for our cognitive function. It's really good for developing new skills. Positive stress is amazing. However, a lot of the time, what we would deem as positive stress can be negative stress for other people. So phrases like man up, get on with it, are often used by people who have got that resilience, who've maybe come from a background where they've been supported. So I think it's really, really important when we talk about stress and the stress on ourselves and stress on other people, we recognize the feelings that we are getting in our body and the stories that we are telling ourselves when it's related to that stress. So I'm going to give you a little bit of science behind this. And this science has come from, it's in my book actually, Drown Anxiety, which is available on Amazon if you want to go and look for it. But when I went through the period that I went through, some people may have deemed that as being work-related stress, or something else. But work-related stress is really bandied about in a poor and negative way, and I'll tell you the reason why. Is that two people can approach the same situation and have different reactions, and the reason for that is that those two people's lives up to that point will have been molded in a certain way. So if you look at, say, something like money, because money is always a massive stressor, if you have come from a background maybe where your parents are very, very well off, you're surrounded by money, money is a normal thing to you. When you don't have it, the fact that you can have that, you've got that backdrop. So say, for example, you take more risks because you know that if it goes wrong, you will have somebody who can bail you out. So you might have parents who can help you out. But then you might be somebody who's extremely poor, who's worked hard and got to that same level, but doesn't have that safety net. Therefore, they're more cautious, they're more stressed when it comes to money. And I've noticed this through some of the studies that I've done when a lot of people talk about, money and law of attraction and bringing money into you. It's quite interesting when you dig into the backstory of many of these people when they go, I invested all this money and I did this and I did that and I did the other and I nearly lost it all. But then they don't tell you that their parents were absolutely loaded. Now, I'm not saying that their parents would have given them the money or they did give them the money. That's not my point. My point is your environment and the stories you tell yourself about what might happen can cause other stress. Now, taking that forward, the science of this is that when you put your body under stress, your body emits something called cortisol. So cortisol is deemed as being a bit of a negative hormone. It's not. It's there to keep you alive. However, science is now proving, and neuroscience is proving that when we have cortisol flooding our body, it actually starts to break down the cells. So we start to see cellular degeneration. And if you look at the language we use, this actually makes sense, because what's another word for stress? Dis-ease. We're not at ease, we are stressed. So let's put that together. What do we get? Disease. Now let's take that a little bit further. If you get an elastic band and you flex it and you put it under tension, it will go back to where it was. Okay, so think of that as positive stress. However, if you take that elastic band and you stretch it beyond its elastic point, it can't function then properly as an elastic band. It hasn't got that flexibility to ping back. And that's what happens when we go into negative stress. And this is why when we flood our brain with cortisol, okay, when we're constantly under stress, cortisol, epinephrine, those hormones that are there to keep us alive. But when we are in survival mode all the time, what happens is the cognitive part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, our social skills, our thinking, logical process part of our brain actually shuts down. And a lot of people experience this by fog. That's probably the best way to explain it. I certainly would experience it as fog. It's like a cloud descending down on you. It's kind of all consuming. You can't think properly. And from the outside in, when somebody actually is looking at somebody under stress, and then they say, you know, man up, get on with it, everything's going to be okay. When that person is in that place, when that cortisol is running around their brain, they are not in logical mode. So you might as well be speaking Spanish and the person doesn't understand Spanish when you're in that situation. So it's really important to identify stress as positive stress is a temporary mode in which we are being pushed to something new. Negative stress is where we are in a position that we do not feel we have control over it, and it is all consuming. At that point, if that continues and you can't get yourself out of that position, that thought pattern, that feeling, that is absolutely when you need to get help. Now, the main focus when people are suffering from anxiety, stress, depression, whatever it is, they're just words, is talking therapy. And actually for some people, if they're in, say, a stressful situation, maybe a job or something like that, or stress at home, talking therapy can actually work as long as the cortisol levels have dropped. So let's say, for example, you're in work and work is causing you stress, but when you go home, those cortisol levels drop. So your anxiety is very much focused on a particular area. So you might not be thinking about work when you're at home, but when you're in work, you get stressed. That's something where talking therapy, cognitive therapy can help. It's about looking at relationships. It's looking at situations. However, if you're taking that stress maybe from work or maybe from home into work or a mixture of both, and you're constantly in a state of stress, talking therapy sometimes cannot work with that, because you have to have the cognitive function to be able to realize, manage and cope. Now, the manage and cope should only be a temporary thing. Talking therapy is about tools. CBT is about tools. It's about taking a situation and giving you the tools to manage that so that you can come out of stress. Okay, so that's really, really important, because I recently had a chat with a colleague who's a counsellor about this, and this is where this is really important. This is why for many people talking therapy doesn't work, because it is not about the thing, it is about the feeling attached to the thing. Why am I not good enough? Why am I different? Why can't I get that promotion? Why can't I get a partner? Why can't I get that job? This is when the cortisol is going around your brain in such a way that you can't cognitively, logically understand why you feel the way that you do. Now, often these types of stresses will be there'll be a trigger point, there'll be an event point, and when this stress comes in, and this is when we start to get anxiety, depression, when we are then offered pills and all that sort of stuff. But actually, that root point, that trigger point, is never the cause. The root cause has happened way before that. And the reason why I say that is that there's two things when you're born with that you are fearful of. One is being dropped, and one is loud noises. Everything else is created within your environment. So this is really important. And the reason why I'm doing this is to ask yourself one question. I feel stressed. Is this permanent or transient? So I feel stressed. Is this permanent or transient? When I say transient, is it this is just a stressful situation that's going to go away? So an example of that may be, I'll do it from a policing point of view. Your radio goes off as a police officer and you are then called to a job, where there may be somebody with a knife, or it could be anything. Okay, so adrenaline goes into your body. You start to get a little bit stressed about that, but it's positive stress. And that positive stress now is kicking in all your survival instincts. What do I need to do? I need to make sure people know where I am. I need to be able to stick my body cam on. I need to make sure that I've got all my personal protective equipment. Am I getting backup? All of those things that you would do in your job. Same in the military, but it's the same in any job. Maybe you're stressed about giving a report to a manager. So you go, okay, I'm going to make sure I've prepped for that. Have I got all the data? Have I got all the questions that they may ask? Again, it's a little bit of anxiety. We're looking into the future. We're stressing ourselves out because we want a good outcome. I've said often, and it's in my book again, that my stress and the breakdown that I had actually was nothing to do with my work. It was nothing to do with my actual job. Actually, the job was easy compared to the other stuff, and the other stuff was around relationships. The other stuff was around my own perception of myself and where that all came from, which I now know. However, it can often be deemed by somebody looking in as something completely different. And then when they're giving you advice and they're saying you need to do this, you need to do that, but actually their advice comes from a place of sympathy, not a place of empathy, and it comes from a place of lack of understanding, that can actually compound the feeling, because what they're saying is they're giving you an answer, but that answer doesn't cognitively work for you. That's not what you're looking for. And because that's not what you're looking for, and you say something like that, they'll go, well, it's got to be, because that's how I see it. So perception is massive when it comes to stress. So take ownership of your stress and ask yourself that question. Is this a permanent stressful feeling, or is this a transient stressful feeling? Then try and work it out. Journal. Sit down. Take time. My advice would always be go and seek help. There is nothing wrong in seeking help. If your car was driving down the road, it was spluttering and the engine was under stress and it wasn't working properly, you'd take it to a garage. If the pipes in your house were under stress and they were bleeding out water, you'd go and get it fixed. Your mind is no different. I absolutely understand that the vulnerability of doing that and the culture that we have in the world still sees stress, anxiety, depression as a weakness. I get that. But actually, when you go and get good therapy, when you go and see a professional, then you can resolve the issues. And that's why I love what I do as a rapid transformational therapist, because it literally saved my life. And I'm so proud of all of the people who've put their trust in me so far to come and see me. And I've got rid of anxiety, they've got rid of depression, they've got rid of cigarettes because when they're stressed they smoke, or they've stopped drinking because they turn to alcohol or food. So yeah, so I hope this was useful for you. Please share, because it is really important that people understand we throw stress and anxiety around like sweet wrappers at the moment, and there's a real defined distinction between what is positive stress and transient stress and negative stress, that permanence of always feeling stressed. So I hope that's useful for you. Please pop any comments in here, tag me in, hashtag replay if you're watching this on replay, and just let me know what your thoughts are. So have a stress-free stress awareness week, and I hope you have an amazing week this week, even though we're going into lockdown. And again, coming into lockdown, so take that opportunity to de-stress. So I'll speak to you all very, very soon. I hope you enjoyed this live, and as I say, please share, and any questions, pop them in the comments. Speak to you soon.